a heart-to-heart chat with disability campaigner and celebrated singer Ritika Sahni at Kolkata's Wisdom Tree Cafe. Cinema for a cause on the Trinayani Trail. Getting more aware about how to manage disability with great positivity and the right spirit.
So I've been working in the field of disability for the last 30 years. I started my career as a musician and as a disability campaigner way back in the 90s. Having worked in the sector for many years, having worked with premier organizations across the country, I realized in late 2000s that if the lives of people with disabilities have to change, it is very important that people who are not disabled were made aware of the strengths and weaknesses and desires and needs of people with disabilities. It was important that they challenge their own stereotypes that were there in their mind, because only then the lives of people with disabilities would improve, or there would be progress in that, in their lives. And so in 2006, I decided to start Trinayani as an out-and-out advocacy-driven organization. You must be wondering why Trinayani. Now, as I said, since I've been working for such a long time, Trinayani we know means the deity with a third eye. In Shiva it means consciousness, in Durga it means knowledge, in Kali it's intuitive power. Trinayani is also the goddess who fights social justice with 10 hands. So when I was working in the sector before Trinayani was created, I would be doing so many things, and literally had so much on my plate and running around trying to convince policymakers, trying to convince parents and teachers and corporate professionals. When the time came to name the organization, my trustees very jokingly said, "You know what? Let's call it Trinayani." Trinayani, so that we can awaken our third eye. Established in 2006, the mission is to honor, include and empower persons with disabilities. Our core objective is to bring about change in the lives of people with disabilities, but we do so by grabbing the attention of the non-disabled people and trying to change their perceptions and mindsets, getting them to challenge their own stereotypes, and perhaps by informing them, we hope they will make a leap from fear and confusion to acceptance and understanding. We started very humbly with 3 trustees. Rakesh Sahni is the vice chairman, Mr. Indranil Goswami is the chairman, and I, of course, am the peon and the secretary and the trainer and the consultant, so I'm also there. Besides 3 of us, we heavily depend upon consultants and advisors from the disability sector who come on board, at times professionally, at times on a voluntary capacity. We have many volunteers. And of course, all my friends join in to be part of what we try to do. In my organization, since we also run another small unit called the Sparsh Foot Spa, I have one employee who is blind, who is a massage therapist and also looks into the administration of the organization. So earlier we had the Persons with Disabilities Act, which recognized 7 disabilities. But in 2016, there was a new act, the Rights for Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, which actually, and you'll be surprised about this, it now recognizes 21 disabilities. The newer ones are autism, Parkinson's, acid attack survivor, learning disabilities. So as far as, and of course, I'm sure if there was another act, there would be new disabilities that would be incorporated. But currently, government recognizes 21 disabilities. As I mentioned earlier, the aim of all our awareness sessions is to break down the negative images that are entrenched in the minds of people with disabilities, thereby generating understanding and helping them move away from pity. Now, the essence of awareness is the realization that in this huge world, there are amazing people all living different lives. And for us, we are forever trying, through all our initiatives, we are trying to convey the message that disability is a difference. It's not a disadvantage. So that's something, until we realize that, it will become very difficult for us to include people with disabilities. So the idea is to be aware of oneself and the other. The idea is also not to other people. The number one thing that I always like to tell our friends, our parents who have children with special needs and disabilities is that you are not alone. There are people, there are support systems, there are professionals who are there to help you. Number two, I think it's extremely important as a parent for you to realize that you should aim for self-reliance in your child. That should be your basic aim. Be aware of the child's capabilities. Do not overprotect the child. Do not underutilize the child's potentialities, and allow your child to be part of all life situations. That's very, very important. No matter what you are going through, no matter what you feel looking at your child, be aware that education is the answer for everybody, including your child who has a disability. Celebrate the smaller achievements. I know at times we get very frustrated. Parents get frustrated. There is so much I'm doing. 24 hours I'm working with the child, and the child doesn't seem to understand it. Remember, depending upon the disability your child has, you might not get the reaction that you are looking out for, but the child is imbibing subtly, is imbibing subconsciously. And every time your child gives you some kind of an indication of having learned something, rejoice that. Don't wait for the bigger picture. Rejoice these smaller achievements that you have. Also remember, do not get bogged down by the reactions of the typical parents. And by typical parents, I mean there are parents around you who don't have children with disabilities, parents of the non-disabled children. At times, I think as a parent who has a disabled child, you get very bogged down with what that other person is thinking. Do not do that. Don't get bogged down with that. You're doing great. Do not get bogged down. And most importantly, you also deserve your own happiness. Do not feel guilty when you have an enjoying moment in your life, when you go out for a walk, when you go for a movie, when you meet your friends. Do not feel guilty. You owe it to be happy yourself. A happy mother is always a great mother to be around, irrespective of whether your child is disabled or not. A very interesting question, because I think what happens with most of us, those who are typically growing or non-disabled, is that we don't go to colleges, we don't go to school, we don't have people around us, so we don't really interact so often with people with disabilities. And our association with disability or awareness about disability at times is minimal or non-existent. Let me give you a couple of tips which will help you perhaps make friends and reach out to someone with a disability. Number one, don't be awkward in front of somebody if you happen to come across someone with a disability. Do not say something like, "Oh no, how did it happen? Oh, you're so brave, so sad." Don't use such words, because disability is a natural condition of human existence. It can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime. So remember, some children are born with disabilities, but any one of us, all you wonderful people watching this, you could become disabled at any point of life, at any point in your life. Be careful about the words you use. Remember, words are powerful and without you realizing it, they could hurt somebody or they could boost up someone's self-esteem. So do not use words like burden, afflicted, suffering, because someone with a disability might not be suffering. Someone with a disability might not have, might not be not healthy, might be a very healthy person. And on the other hand, someone like me, looking very healthy, could be heavily diabetic. So you know, don't use that word. Don't use words like deaf and dumb. It's absolute no-no. Do not say wheelchair bound, because someone who uses a wheelchair actually uses it for mobility. So she's a wheelchair user. So be careful about the language that you use. Also, I think what's very important is reach out to people you don't know, because that's the exciting thing about knowledge. When you are talking to somebody with different experiences, then you become more mindful of their circumstances, and that's what leads to empathy. As a consultant and trainer in disability inclusion, at Trinayani, I spearhead most of the initiatives. Also very important, since we work in the field of disability and we're talking about persons with disabilities, at Trinayani, we actually adhere to this whole concept of nothing about us without us. So we have friends with disabilities, self-advocates, who work along with us in most of our projects. The first thing that we do is we curate and design sensitization campaigns and sensitization workshops for the academic community and for the corporate sector. We have so far done some very interesting workshops for Air India, for Indigo Airlines, for Yes Bank, for L'Oreal. We've done a very interesting disability awareness campaign and a year-long disability awareness campaign for 4 Delhi public schools across the country. That was one of our most important projects in the last couple of years. So a lot of sensitization. So I have a lot of people coming to me to specially curate or design it according to their needs. Secondly, we have a radio show on disability. Since we work across disabilities, we work with children and adults across disabilities. The radio show has, in the radio show, we talk about subjects which are as varied as disability in sexuality, or disability in sports, or disability in entertainment, or disability in education. And we broadcast these radio shows on All India Radio. And they are now available on SoundCloud. Thirdly, we do a lot of collaboration and a lot of networking. For example, in 2019, we partnered with Election Commission of India to create a film and to create brochures that they widely use to inspire disabled people to come and vote, and they will continue to be used. We have a spa that we run, which we started in 2011, which is called the Sparsh Foot Spa. That was to walk the talk. So the spa is actually run and managed by trained blind reflexology massage therapists. It is inside our organization in Bombay, and we're running it for the last 11 years, which is our livelihood initiative. We also run the inclusive band called Pehli Barish. As a performer, as a singer myself, I lead the band, and all my musicians are trained, skillful, professional, either have visual impairment or other disabilities, and we regularly perform for whoever invites us for performances. Besides these very interesting things, something that we do throughout is create poems, create awareness games, awareness literature. Our latest one, which I would like to mention, because that's something which is a unique fun card game kit that we've created for the academic community. The National Education Policy, if you're aware, the recent National Education Policy makes a lot of emphasis on teacher preparation and on disability education in teacher preparation. So this particular kit, which has 6 card games and an awareness magazine, worksheets, and an original story, will help teachers to understand the broad spectrum, or orient them to the broad world of people with disabilities in a very fun and entertaining and low pressure way. With the radio show, we also create short films, and the idea is to have these role model films for our parents with disabilities, or for the world to know the capabilities and the achievements or the simple life situations that our friends with disabilities go through. I would take this opportunity to also reach out to all my interesting viewers that at Trinayani we are always looking out for networking and collaborating with like-minded NGOs, like-minded organizations, like-minded clubs, societies. There could be anybody who would allow us to push the subject of disability into the public domain. For example, we immediately said yes to the Karagora Arts Festival that happens in Bombay, or we were invited for the Hindustan Petroleum HPCL Diversity Inclusion Month, where we played our snakes and ladder game with the students, with the non-disabled children of the colony. We took our game kit to an architecture college, or we took our game kit to and we played it with bus conductors of Panjim. You know, everybody, no matter what you do or what profession you are in, you need to be able to understand the fact that disability does not mean incompetence. Disability is not a disadvantage, and people with disabilities need to be included. So the decision making done by the 90% of the population who are not disabled has to be inclusive. You have to include people with disabilities, and for that it becomes easier for us at Trinayani to collaborate with anybody. It could be bus conductors of Panjim, it could be nurses of Tata Memorial Hospital, it could be the railway officials, it could be the airline officials, it could be artists, photographers, filmmakers. Let me share something with you. We had a filmmaker friend who wanted to create a film on disability, a fiction film on disability, with a character who had disability. And I liked the fact that he came to us because he wanted to know the reality of what it is like to be deaf, so that when that film is watched by millions of people in the country, they were getting the right portrayal of the disability. Because films are so powerful, if you give a wrong message, then with the already wrong stereotypes that you have in mind, that film reiterates that wrong stereotype. So it's so important. Everybody, no matter in what profession you are, you need to be very responsible of how you're portraying disability, because all of us, whether we like it or not, we are very influenced by the media, by what we read in the papers. So everything what is written about disability has to be with responsibility. What you show about disability has to be with responsibility. There are two kinds of champs. The first champion of Trinayani, the first champions of Trinayani are my friends with disabilities. All my self-advocate friends who come on board with us, and we do a session called Ask Me Anything. Because remember, when you're disabled, you are an expert simply by experience. So we call our expert champions with disabilities to come on board in most of our Trinayani initiatives. So they are one champion. The other champion, I would say, are my friends or anybody who at some point of time takes a moment, pauses and says, I tell you what, let me give it a shot. Let me admit a child with a disability in my school. Let me give employment to a person who has a disability. They are my champions. All those people who take a pause, who use their privileges to right a wrong, who use their privileges not only to do best for themselves, but for those who are behind in the rows. So they are also Trinayani champions. I would say journey so far and ahead for us at Trinayani will continue to be creating awareness. That is our tagline, creating awareness about disability. The first step towards anything is to change one's mindset, is to change our perceptions. And I think it is the slowest process. So we are going to be in business for long, not that we want to, but we will be, because it takes a concentrated effort to reach out to people and ask them to think differently. So we will continue to create and use the medium of arts and performance and puppetry and theatre and poems to reach out to the non-disabled population of our country and ask them and urge them to not only think about how different we are, but also pause and think about how common, what are the commonalities between us. And I think that's where you will realize that we are one big happy world and the differences are all only in the mind. अक्खा दुनिया गोल है, यहाँ कोई नहीं ऐसा सोल है जो कभी नहीं हुआ हो परेशान। अक्खा दुनिया गोल है, यहाँ कोई नहीं ऐसा सोल है जो कभी नहीं हुआ हो परेशान। पसीना बहाओगे तभी मंजिल को पाओगे, यह दुनिया 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 मेरी जान। इस मेले की भीड़ में हो जाओ ना गुम, तुम में है कई खूबियाँ, सच में यूनिक हो तुम। दुनिया देगी तुमको प्यार क्योंकि तुम सिंगल पीस हो मेरे यार। दुनिया देगी तुमको प्यार क्योंकि तुम सिंगल पीस हो मेरे यार। अक्खा दुनिया गोल है, यहाँ कोई नहीं ऐसा सोल है जो कभी नहीं हुआ हो परेशान। पसीना बहाओगे तभी मंजिल को पाओगे, यह दुनिया 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 मेरी जान। यह दुनिया 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 मेरी जान। यह दुनिया 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 मेरी जान।